Hey YouTube, it's EvanMagician34, and I've got an interesting spin on Monarchs here for you for the new format. Obviously we can't do Frog-Monarchs, but this deck actually follows a very similar vein as Frog-Monarchs. So we'll go ahead and hop right into it. Wow, that was actually a really terrible pun. Alright, 3 copies of Caius the Shadow Monarch. He's pretty much the best Monarch. His effect removes any card. It doesn't trip up things like My Body's a Shield and so on. I shouldn't have to defend how awesome that card is. We're also running 3 copies of Ryza. His effect removes all kinds of things, gets rid of synchros, and once again doesn't trigger things like Stardust and My Body. And we're also running 2 copies of Light and Darkness Dragon, because we can easily get 2 tributes on the field in this deck. So this guy is great. He quashes a lot of other decks, keeps them from doing what they want to do. Once again, kind of speaks for itself. And you can definitely book him when he runs out of negations to refill his ability, essentially. Alright, on to the rest of the deck. We run 2 copies of Cyber Dragon. Even though he's at 3, 2 seems to be the best number. You run too many extra copies, they start getting dead in your hand, and you don't want that. So for this build, we're only running 2. 1 copy of Plague Spreader Zombie. 2 copies of Dandelion, because he makes tokens that we love to feed to things for tributes. Just 1 copy of Treeborn Frog. We're not running 2 or 3. Once again, it keeps the deck from getting cluttered. You really only need 1. And there are plenty of other things for your opponent to potentially DD, Crow, or Red Tiari. And if you lose this guy, you have lots of other outs too. So, he's a bad top deck. It's mainly why we have 1. Sangian searches all the aforementioned little supporter cards like Treeborn and Dandelion and so on. Good set. Great first turn card. We run 1 copy of Gorz the Emissary of Darkness. 1 copy of Tragoedia. And there's no excuse for not having 3 of it now because it came out in a tin. 3 copies of Battle Fader. He's a great way to feed your Monarchs. He's like your ideal way. You may not always have a monster other than a Monarch you had on the field. Your opponent kills it, tries to come after you to inflict damage after they play the rest of their turn. Bam, Battle Fader. They can't do anything next turn. You retaliate with a Monarch. Get rid of their biggest threat and kill the other one in combat with the Monarch. Bing, bang, boom. Alright, and we are running 2 copies of DD Crow. This guy functions more like a spell than a monster, so don't think of him towards the monster count necessarily, even though you can set him in a pinch. There are just too many things this is good against now. Infernities are still out there this format. It definitely helps against Gladiator Beasts when they try to bring back that Chariot from the grave. You can say no and fry it. And of course, X-Saber is your primary target for Crow. So, and it does work on other decks that are trying to come back like Lightsworns. Monster Reborn. Real big giant duh in this deck. Dark Hole. 3 copies of Book of Moon. Lad likes them, but they hinder a lot of opponents and allow you to run things over and so on and so forth. So, really good card there. Cold Wave. A lot of your power just comes from your monsters, so you have no problem cold waving. 2 copies of Mystical Space Typhoon. All the obvious reasons on that one. 1 copy of Nobleman of Extermination. It's just great removal. And too many decks are just running like 3 copies basically of certain traps that are bad for you. So yeah, it's just another good empty destruction basically. Torrential Tribute. Solemn Judgment, big control card. Royal Oppression, because you can easily lock down the game without special summoning, and your opponent will probably destroy it to get around it, in which case that'll free up your special summons once again too. So basically you do whatever special summoning you need to get control of the field, set this in your back row, and then flip it when your opponent tries to regain control with a special summon. Call of the Haunted, another big giant duh for the deck. 2 copies of Bottomless, because basically everybody has to run it now. 2 copies of Phoenix Wingman Blast. It helps you discard your little support monsters like Dandelion, Treeborn Frog, and Plague Spreader and whatnot. Can also always pitch a dead card if it has to. And spinning is good because it doesn't get negated by the usual protections your opponents may be running. And it puts them a card under. Combine this with Ryza. You can bury them 2 cards deep. That's great. Chain this if your opponent actually gets Plague Spreader on the field via its effect, and that's devastating because once again you've double spun them, so that's 2 turns worth of not drawing essentially. That they're going to suffer through because of Phoenix. So that's just awesome. And last, we are also running Dust Tornado. It's a good set in Flip and Destroy. So you can run 2 Dusties instead of the 1 Dust and 1 Nobleman of Extermination. You can run 2 Noblemen of Extermination, but you do have some fairly commonly occurring traps, so you probably don't want to overdo it. Okay, moving on to the extra deck. I've got Ally of Justice Field Marshal here. But really, I recommend this be Mistworm. The main reason I got this guy in this build is because I didn't have a spare Mistworm at the time I made this video. Either one will work, but Mistworm is preferred. Because that's basically Plague Spreader plus Treeborn Frog or Battle Fader, and then a Monarch. Because all your Monarchs are 6 stars in this deck. Stardust Dragon, Scrap Dragon, Colossal Fighter, Thought Ruler Archfiend, Infernity Doom Dragon. Oops, sorry. Actually, run 2 copies of Black Rose Dragon, because that's Cyber Dragon plus your Plague Spreader, or any 2-star you can monster born up, of course. Running Scrap Archfiend, just that big muscle on 7 stars, because sometimes when you sync with that Cyber Dragon, you're looking for size. And Archfiend offers you the best size for 7 stars. Also Urbellum, another great 7-star target, though he lacks the brute strength of the Archfiend. Goyo Guardian, Bryanak, Dragon of the Ice Bearer, Magical Android, and last but not least, Ally of Justice Cataster. You can run Chimeratech Fortress Dragon if you want, by dropping one of these other cards. You could drop a second copy of Stardust, you could drop the second Black Rose, which might be a little better advised. You could drop either Urbellum or the Scrap Archfiend. I mean, there are places to wiggle around in here and change it. I recommend keeping the Mistworm. But yeah, that's the deck. And until next time, rate, comment, subscribe, and enjoy.